All right, guys, welcome back to part 2 of Open Water. The next piece of our magic cavalcade of values is going to be called the first stage, second stage, and safety second. Bonus points for anybody who can tell me why and who came up with the idea and pushed the idea of the safety second. Nope. It would be wonderful if it was me. I'd be very proud. Anybody know? Any of my dive guides and assistant instructors know? Who came up with the idea for the safety second and pushed it onto the industry? That would be Mr. Sheck Exley. That would be my wife over there that answered Sheck Exley. Sheck Exley is actually a really interesting guy to read about. He had a whole mess of world records on cave diving to magic depths. He unfortunately died doing a record, but he was such a cool cave diver that he knew he was going to have an accident. He was at 850 feet in a cave, 850 feet down at depth in a cave. And when they theorized that he knew he was getting ready to have an accident, he was going into high pressure nervous system disorder, that he tied himself to the rope so that he wouldn't endanger the people who had to rescue him, so that he would be tied on the rope and they could just pull him out. So, but he was also a math teacher in Florida. Really neat guy, really interesting story. Wrote a book, Depths Without Bounds, something like that. Really, really interesting read. So if you get a chance. But we have this. This is going to be, a lot of times we call this the octopus because it kind of looks like a little octopus, right? As well. Maybe not like the octopus from the Meg 2, which, by the way, don't watch the Meg 2. That was, when they got to the megalodon-sized octopus, I was done, because then they had the Megs, and they had the dinosaurs, and then they got to the giant octopus. I was like, come on, guys. Even Jason Statham's. Unfortunately, I went into it with reasonable expectations. It had Jason Statham. I thought he was going to kick some butt and do some karate stuff, and I thought, he was diver, swimmer, diver. So it definitely, I was expecting more, but I got to the point with the octopus and I'm like, I'm done. So anyway, moral of the story is this is what we're going to be using. So there's a couple key pieces on this. The first one is called the first stage. This is the top piece right here where everything plugs into. This is what actually hooks onto the tank as well. The next things that are going to come out of it, we're going to have our primary. Generally, our primary is going to be black, and it's going to be called our second stage. There's a couple key pieces of the second stage to be aware of. The first one is one part goes in your mouth. Simple enough. The other part is there's a big button on the back. That's your purge. And if you push the purge, it will cause air to come out. We're going to learn why that's important. Now, the good news is it should have a safety second on it as well. Sometimes called an octopus, but usually a safety second. Why do you think we have one in yellow for a safety second? Easy to find? But what would we use this for? For who? Exactly. It's an alternate source of air that if somebody runs out of gas, I can either give them this or I can give them my primary and I can take this. But I have another way to breathe. That way we can do an air share. We can both breathe from one tank. Now, I want to impart this to you now. If one of you runs out of air and you begin an air share, your dive is done. Head to the surface. Don't be that idiot. This is, oh, you've still got 1,000 pounds of air. Well, let's just dive together. Don't be that idiot, please, please. So that's why you have a safety second. On the other side, you also have a LP inflator hose. This is going to hook up to your BC. Brian, or low pressure. Thank you. Would one of you guys get me a BC and a tank? I can't use the Hollis one, unfortunately. But we have an LP hose. This is going to hook up to our BC, and this is what's going to allow air to go into the big back balloon on the back of our BC. And then finally, we have our information system. And on our information system, we have some key pieces of information. In fact, we have 3 key pieces of information that are huge for us. What do you think one of those pieces of information might be? What's one of the 3 pieces of information we want to know during diving that might be really, really important? Air. Ding, ding, ding. That's very good. What do you think? Depth. Depth is another fantastic one. How deep am I? And the final one, there's one more piece. Not really. Not imperative. Pressure. We already talked about pressure, how much gas I have. One more piece of information. Time. How long have I been in? So time, depth, and gas. The magic 3 pieces of information. So you need at least those 3 pieces of information. Now, If you are sharp and you get a dive computer, it'll also give you other information like how far you have to before you, how long you can be down before you have to come up because you're going to cross the magic non-decompression limit line. So it'll have other things that maybe tell you temperature. It'll capture all the information about your dive and that you can download onto your phone later so you can share it with your friends on Instagram or X or whatever you kids are using now. What are you kids using now for your social media? Are you on X? No, not on Twitter? Instagram? Okay. MySpace? Yeah, that's mine. Please check out my MySpace account. I'm not going to put it on just yet. We're going to do that all together. But that's the key pieces. Now, as you might notice, on your first stage, there is a cap. It's called a dust cap. You always want that on until you don't want it on, right? And when it's not in use, you always want that dust cap on. Simply enough, you're just going to unscrew, and that dust cap comes right off. You can see right in there. The reason we want that dust cap always on until we're getting ready to use it, we don't want water to get in there or moisture. If you take this and you take this off and you dunk it underwater, you will get the opportunity to have this rebuilt by your local technician, which will cost you about 120 bucks. So save yourself the money and don't have the opportunity to rebuild that. So keep it together. Next slide, please. Next slide. I hate this slide. Next slide. So every cylinder, I'm just going to go through that last one just really quickly. Every cylinder that you guys are going to be dealing with is going to have a couple pieces of information on it. One of them is going to be a date stamp somewhere on it. Every cylinder has to be hydrostatically tested every 5 years. And exactly what it sounds is they're going to take all the air out of it, they're going to fill it up with water, and they're going to fill it up with water to pressure of twice the limit of the tank. So this one's a 3,000 pound tank. They're going to fill it up to 6,000 pounds to see what happens. If it fails that hydrostatic pressure test, what happens to it? It has to be destroyed. It has to be condemned. It either becomes a mailbox or a doorstop. I use mine I've got one for a doorstop. It can become a grill, all kinds of cool things, something you can throw at your neighbor. Don't do that, I'm just kidding. But every 5 years it has to be hydrostatically tested. We do have tanks in this shop that were born in the 60s. So they can last a good long time. The other thing it's going to have on it is a visual inspection seal right here on the bottom. Every year, this tank has to be drained completely, this valve taken completely off, and we stick something down in it. We take a look to make sure there's no rust, barnacles, illegal aliens, anything that shouldn't be there. No drugs, no cocaine, meth, whatever the kids are doing this today. Nothing in there that shouldn't be in there, right? So we visually inspect it once a year. It is definitely important. We had a tank come in from a customer not long ago that was completely empty. We did the visual on it, and you could literally take the tank and water and rust came out, and when we took the top off, you could smell it. He'd let it get drained and get water in it, and rusted out and soured in there. It was pretty special. So we want to make sure that you're going through and all your tanks are safe. So as you look at your tank, just make sure to take a look at that. The next piece of fantastic, amazing gear that we're going to be dealing with is we're going to be dealing with a BC. BCs come in a couple of different flavors. The ones we're going to be using for training, unless you purchase your own BC, like a BP and Wing over there, will look like this. They'll have integrated weight pockets on the sides. They'll have nice pockets you can stick stuff into it. It'll have usually an air dump on one side, and it'll have a magic inflator, deflator on the other side. Now the cool thing with this is it has 2 buttons. Even a guy can use this. The girls will have no problem. Top button to let gas out, side button to put gas in. If something happens and you have no gas, you can manually inflate it. And what you'll find is on the back, it fills up like a balloon. And as we know, balloons float, right? So this is how you will keep your buoyancy at depth as well as float on the surface with your magic handy dandy balloon. It also has some nice straps on it because you want to strap your tank to this as well. These particular ones, as BCs, also have a nice waist clip, a cummerbund, and then they clip around. They have a place for your safety second, chest straps, and then D-rings so you can clip stuff off so you can look like a Navy SEAL. Just kidding, that's not what they're really for. Perfect, so let's learn how to put it together. Guys, come on down. So simple enough, as we get into our tank, the first thing we want to do, we're going to notice, don't put the cap back on. When you come up to your tank, there'll be a cap on it. The cap means that it's been filled. You're going to go ahead and take the cap off. And the first thing you guys want to do, get nice and close, very gently crack your valve. Smell your air. Don't crank that thing all the way open, just gently open it. Now, why do you think we want to smell the air? What do you think that's important for? Yeah, absolutely. If it smells like anything, should you breathe it? No, no. The most common source of contaminated air is in third world countries where they have a diesel compressor and they've got their intake by their exhaust. So as you get that carbon dioxide into the tank, you breathe that in at pressure, it will cause a type of pneumonia that you cannot get over. If your air smells like anything, then do not breathe it. Simple enough. Now the next piece of this is we have cam bands here on the back. We're just going to make sure we get those all nice and velcroed there. You also notice we have a handle and we have a neck ring. So simple enough, we're going to take this, we're going to put it over top and slide it down. Now the good news is most of these will already be set to about the right. And yes, it takes a little bit of muscle sometimes to get them to get where you want them to. I call it aggressive negotiation. So, and then you're going to just take your neck ring, you're going to slap that around. Nice thing is the neck ring will put it right about where it should be anyway. But if it doesn't have a neck ring, typically you do not want your top cam band or your cam band to be closer than 2 fingers from the bend of the tank. You want to be away from that bend of the tank, so at least 2 fingers down. Now, as you do these cam bands, one of the things you might notice is they are not currently strapped through the top loop. There's a reason for that. What you want to do is just give it a couple good yanks, make sure that's nice and tight, and then once that is nice and tight, take and stick the loop through the top hook, that top ring. The reason you're going to do that is because it makes a nice little fulcrum action, and you can crank that over. Yes, it will take a little negotiation. Make sure to Velcro that down. Here's your secret. If you can move that in any direction at all, it is too loose, because as it wets, it will get looser. So if there's any play in that, you have not done it right, go back and try again. Simple enough, same thing. Just take this and give it a couple good yanks to make sure it's nice and tight on there. Once it's nice and tight on there, stick that right through. Some of these only have 1, some of them have 2. We're going to stick that bad boy through just like so. And again, just grab the end of that and just yank that across. Yes, it's going to take a little aggressive negotiation. Once it's on there, check it, make sure that it does not move at all. Now, I was just getting there. So as, oh, I'm so sorry. Sorry about that. So as you're getting ready to put your first stage on, you're going to want to make sure that, I'm so sorry about that, that you're going to want to make sure that the air is in the correct direction. And here's how to know that you put the valve on correctly. Air towards hair. So if I'm standing here, the air is going to come towards my hair. That way I know that I put it on correctly. So the valve is always going to point toward you. Air towards hair is my way to remember that. Now, simple enough, I'm going to take this. I've got this in correct position. I'm going to make sure that I've got the inflator on my left side. I'm going to make sure I have my LP hose on the left side, which means all my breathing devices are going to go off the right-hand side. This is going to open up. There's a hole here. There's a screw here. Just going to put it gently over. Now, here's a big secret for you. Pro tip, 2-year-old tight. If you are a muscle guy or a muscle woman or a muscle person, you want to make sure we get all the genders there. Do not crank that bad boy down because you will never get it off. 2 fingers is all you need. That's all the pressure you need. Okay? Once you've got there, simply enough, you're going to take your LP hose, and just like every other air hose you've ever dealt with in your entire life, pull back, push forward, make sure it's on, right? Now you're all hooked up. Just put that through the Velcro here, and you're good to go. Now, here's how we know we've done it right. Now, I'm just going to make sure I back that off. And you guys saw me, 2-year-old tight. That's all it took. This is 3,000 pounds of pressure. I'm going to turn this on a little bit. It's all my... Now, I always do it a little bit first before I do it a lot of it. The reason being, if there's a split in one of these hoses or something happened, anybody ever had a split in your high pressure hose on your compressor? A lot of fun with that, right? We're going to make sure that that doesn't happen. We've still got control. We can still turn it back on. So we're going to get a little pressure, watch it come to life, and then we're going to give it all the pressure we need. So make sure you turn these all the way on. There is an old 80s thing out there where they say, turn it all the way on and back a quarter turn. That is for the 80s cylinders, the old J cylinders that are no longer available. It's an old thing that's stuck around for whatever reason. For your safety, turn it all the way on. There's a couple reasons for that. The first one is if you have a dive master that's not really savvy and he comes along and he doesn't feel that all the way on, he may just turn it all the way back off on you. So he'll feel it. Oh, nope, it's all the way on. So make sure it's all the way on. Simple enough. Now, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up my cylinders. This is not a good second stage. Okay, that would be why. So if you hear air coming out of your regulator at all, either regulator, turn it back off, depressurize, set it to service. Generally, when air is coming out of this means the first stage is broken. Now, we're just going to pretend this is actually working. These are called on-demand regulators. Who invented the on-demand regulator? Well, Jacques Cousteau takes credit for it, so we'll let him keep taking credit for it because he started a company called Aqualung. But the idea is this will only give you air when you need air. So when I put this in my mouth and I breathe, it will decrease the pressure on the spring and it will give me gas. When I stop breathing, it'll stop giving me air. So. This one does have a pre-dive and a dive. It's a Venturi switch on it. Most of ours do. In this particular case, you'll see it on the right-hand side or left-hand side here. There's if it's all the way forward, that's your pre-dive. And what it does is it puts a slight amount of tension on the spring and the valve so that it won't go to free flow in the water. When you're ready to dive, you just flip that switch forward. It will breathe both ways. It's just with the switch forward, it'll breathe more easily. But it puts a slight amount of tension on to keep it from going to free flow. Now, one of the things you're going to notice with these is that if you have high pressure and you point it up, what's going to happen? It's going to do that underwater. It's going to go to free flow. So anytime the regulator is out of your mouth, please point it down. You will have a lot less free flows. Make sure the air is pointed down. And that's the key and secret to this. So once we get this going, it's not, oh look, it's not breathing anymore. Just make sure to give it a breath on both your first and second. You want to make sure and feel them breathe. Test it. Once that's good to go and you're happy with that, take a look at your gauge and say, wait, okay, how much gas do I have? In this particular case, this one has 850. Dive Master, I need a different tank. So this would not be a tank that I want to dive. You generally want to have around 3,000 PSI typically. So check your gas before you dive. Because remember, who's responsible for your dive? You are, not me. So you're responsible for checking your gear. Simple enough. Who wants to try taking it apart? Come on down. You look studly for me today. So it comes apart the same way it went together. The first thing is we're going to turn the gas off. Now, here's your magic question. Just because I turn the gas off, does that mean the hoses are depressurized? No. So once we've got that all set, we're going to grab one of those. That's going to let the gas off. Now, interesting thing for you, if something happens, there is about 2 breaths of gas in this line. That's how much pressure is in there. You will get literally, if you go to 0 pressure and you try and breathe one more, you'll get 2 more breaths out of just that much space. Interesting trivia for you. Next, we're going to go ahead and loosen up that back knob. Nice and easy to get off, right? That's because we did 2-year-old tight. Always, always, always put the dust cap back on. Please, please, please. Perfect. You're going to unhook the LP hose. I'll take that for you. I'm just going to set that right over here. Keep going. Once you've got that all done, You're going to reach over and you're going to uncam it and take it out of the first loop, just the first loop only. You don't actually have to take it out of the first loop. It's just you're being nice for the next person. And with scuba gear, sometimes it takes a little aggressive negotiation. Yep. There you go. Now, the last piece is do not put that cap back on. The reason being is that tells us that that tank has been used. That's our little indicator. Is if it's like that, it's been used, we need to check it. And as you saw, it came out here with a cap on it. We checked it, it was 800 PSI. That's way too much, way too little gas. So we know very quickly that it was a used tank. But what happened if we'd send that off with a customer for a dive? Less than that probably with 800 PSI. Depends on how deep, but probably 5 minutes. So don't put the cap back on. Easy enough, guys? All right, let's go ahead and have our seats. We'll continue our cavalcade of values. And good news is tomorrow you guys will all have the opportunity to put your gear together. Now, good news, as you guys put your gear together, I will have a dive master or an assistant instructor to help you on your first time of putting it together. Please do not leave my pool area without taking your gear apart. So, because if you don't take it apart, then I have to use one of my low-paid tank monkeys to take it apart. So we're always kind to our low-paid tank monkeys, which is assistant instructors and below. Next slide, please. The last piece of this is your dive computer. The dive computer is definitely a neat way to go. It tracks a lot of information. By the way, all these particular computers are available here at Idaho Dive Pirates. I dive this is the Sunto Black. I dive that one personally. And my wife, this is an Aqualung 550. My wife will have that on her training gear if she gets in the water as well. In fact, there's my I-550 or my Sunto over there. I'm loaning it to one of my assistant instructors for a class this weekend. But the nice thing is with these, they will give you a lot of great information: depth, PSI, no deco time, time of the dive, your ascent rate, what the temperature of the water is. It'll track a lot of stuff for you and make your life very simple as well. So definitely a nice thing to do. I suggest buying the nicest dive computer you can afford, plus about 20%. That way you get the nicest one and you just won't outgrow it. Because the worst thing you can do is, and I did this, I bought a Pro Plus 3, great computer if I was just going to be a recreational diver. Cost me, I want to say $650, $700. And then a year later, as I got into more advanced diving, I ended up buying another computer because the Pro Plus 3 wouldn't do the kind of diving that I want to do. So I got to spend another $900. And then I spent another $900. And then, so the amount of gear that I have is stupid. I have 4 professional tech computers that I use. Nikki has, I think she's got 4 too as well. No, she's got 3 or 4. Anyway, and then we have 2 recreational computers. So it's stupid how much gear we have. But getting a nice computer will definitely help as well. And then most of them will have a compass built into them somewhere. Both of these have compasses built in. This one has an analog compass. This one has a digital compass. And these all have digital compass as well. Why do you think you might want a compass underwater? What do you think? It does look the same. Absolutely. It's very easy to get disoriented and go the wrong direction. So one of the things, as you guys buy your own gear, I definitely encourage, before you go on any big trip or once a year, whichever comes first, bring your gear into the shop and have us take a look over it. Make sure it's in top condition, it's tuned. Regulators can actually be tuned to breathe a little easier, breathe a little harder, free flow a little simpler. They can be tuned to you a little bit better. But you also want to make sure that they're good, that they haven't rusted up inside, that they're in good condition. Because the last thing you want to have happen is show up on a dive boat in Belize, Honduras, Truck Lagoon, Palau, wherever you're going, the Azores, wherever you want to go diving, and get on that dive boat and all of a sudden have something, a 10-cent part, go wrong. Because a lot of times if it's internal, they won't have that 10-cent part on the boat or the ability to take it apart. So just check it out ahead of time. It's definitely to your advantage. Now, the adaptation of aquatic environment. So we've all heard of Roy G. Biv. Anybody heard that name before? All the colors, yeah. Roy G. Biv. So what ends up happening is as we go into the aquatic environment, we start losing colors. At about 15 feet, we lose all our reds. At about 30 feet, we lose our oranges, we lose our yellows and our greens and our lighter blues, and then everything becomes dark blue. As you guys remember from that video that I showed you guys at the beginning of jumping off the dive boat, until I flashed my light on it, everything looked the same, right? It was Technicolor blue, right? So it's one of the reasons you definitely want to make sure you carry a light. It's nice to be able to look in the little holes to see the cool stuff, because that's, for Nikki and I, our favorite things to find are the little stuff, the coconut shrimp, the coral shrimp, the eels that are hiding in them, in the holes. You find all kinds of cool stuff. You'll find crabs hiding during the day, hiding back in little hidey holes and pukas. You'll find the lobsters hiding back in there as well. It's nice to be able to see them in there. And that's where they'll be, is in the little holes. So having a light to be able to see them, but also to be able to see the cool colors. There's not a lot of times you'll be chasing after a really pretty fish, and you'll think it's blue, and then you'll flash a light on it, and it'll be bright red or yellow or green. Triggerfish are some of my favorite because they have the broadest range of colors of all the fish out there, in my opinion at least. For example, the state fish of Hawaii, and bonus points for anybody who can actually name the Hawaiian state fish. The hana hana, huna huna, puka puka, ana ana. That's, yeah. I always come close, but never quite get it. But it's basically a triggerfish, but it's dark blue and light blue. It's really pretty, and it has one big front white tooth. It's kind of neat. And if you get too close to its nest and you provoke it enough, it will come out and nibble on you, and you don't want that. But having a flashlight is definitely to your advantage because you definitely lose colors. The other thing to be aware of underwater, every guy's biggest dream is to see a big fish underwater because of why? What's the biggest concern when Josh goes out fishing and he tells you he caught a fish this big? How big do you think it really was?
That big.
Well, with Josh probably.
But with Caitlin, I would think it was maybe.
It was this big. There we go. So every guy tells you, I saw a fish this big. It's horse pucky. It was this big. So everything is 4 times bigger and closer to you than underwater. As you're figuring things out, you'll see people do this because they'll think it's closer than it is, because it has a magnification factor. So everything's closer and bigger than you actually think it is. So be aware that the intercostal space between your mask will cause a magnification factor. So vision underwater, be aware. Other thing to be aware of is water temperature. Water wicks body temperature away from your body 4 times faster than air, or 25 times faster than air, sorry. So as you are in 80-degree water, how about this? I spent some time in other places as well. Can you get hypothermia in the Mediterranean at where it is 92 degrees? Absolutely. Anything below 98 degrees, right? You can absolutely, if you sit in enough time, you will get hypothermia. And be aware, hypothermia is cumulative. The longer you spend in the water, the more closer to hypothermia you'll get. Hypothermia definitely is a danger factor for diving and something you need to pay attention to for a variety of reasons we'll go into a lot later. Accessories. I like to joke that diving is kind of like going to junior prom or senior prom. Are you old enough for prom yet? No? Okay. There's others who have been to prom can tell you that it's not about the tux. It's about the boutonniere. It's about the corsage. It's about the limo. It's about making sure she's got the right hairdo. It's about the shoes, the purse, the pearls, the earrings, and everything else, right? Diving is not just about the basic diving. It's about the fun accessories. And while you can't actually go diving with your dog, I just thought this was funny, it is about the fun stuff. For example, this is one of my dive computers. One of the things you might notice that I carry something that's every guy should have, right? This knife has actually saved my bacon twice by being right there. So little dumb things like a cutting device. Anybody want to hear the story of how the knife saved my life? We were at 150 feet doing a big dive, and we were launching what's called an SMB on a reel, which is basically on a balloon on a string, for lack of a better way to put it, until we get there. I pulled out a little bit too much line, and we were in a pretty heavy drift at 150 feet down, which you guys won't be certified to dive 150 feet for a long time. the current caught my SMB and caused it to loop around my wrist, and it was the SMB was getting higher and higher and expanding and going faster and faster, and it started pulling me up way fast. And at the speed I was going, I was definitely going to get the bends. I reached over, grabbed my knife, and I said goodbye, and I cut the string and sent it on its way, and I was able to save my life with that. So, and while it may not have taken my life, it definitely was dangerous. I had another incident very similar. I was just using a spool. We were at a very heavy drift in a low visibility current way out in the ocean, and I went to launch my SMB, and it launched perfectly, but I got my finger stuck in the spool, and there was a tangle in the spool that I couldn't get undone, and it started pulling me forward. It pulled me 40 feet up and 40 feet ahead of my dive buddies, and same thing. Took my knife out and I cut it. So things happen. Absolutely. I saved a 5-foot sturgeon with my knife. He was stuck on a fishing lure out at John's Hole. So I used my knife to save a sturgeon as well. So definitely to your advantage to have one. When you do buy an SMB, which you should, make sure you write your name and phone number on it, because I got that SMB twice. I've used that. I lost that same SMB twice, and I've gotten it back twice. So it's definitely about the accessories, the dive computer, the knife, the SMB, the reel, the hood. Next slide, please. The dive light, as you can see, is very, very important. And just to prove to you, there's that exact same knife, by the way, and the light and a GoPro. So that's me torturing a nice little turtle there as well. Other things to be aware of: we've all been skiing. We've all crashed on the ski slopes, right? We leave crap everywhere. We become this nice yard sale. As you try and get to the slopes with all your crap, it's nice to have it in a bag. Get yourself a dive bag. It's definitely to your advantage to put this stuff in. And get yourself a mesh bag, because your stuff will get wet. It will smell funky if you don't. And nobody wants funky stuff in their trunk, right? It's all happened to us. And spare items. They make it for about 15, 20 bucks. They make a Swiss Army tool for diving that has a screwdriver on it, 4 wrenches, a little knife, some other things, a pick. It's about 20 bucks. And O-rings. You can buy an O-ring kit for about 10 bucks. Between those two things, you'll be able to solve most issues. The most common thing that happens is the O-ring will blow on your cylinder. It's about a 50-cent O-ring. How excited would you be if you lost a dive for a 50-cent O-ring? So for about $35 for some spare items, it definitely goes a long way. Now, the first rule of scuba diving that's super important. I need you guys to write this down, and just, if you have to, tattoo it on your forearm. Breathe continuously. Breathe, breathe, breathe. This is not a breath hold sport. I can't tell you how many times I've gone through skills and drills with people where they start to hold their breath. There will be a skill that I'll have you take your regulator out of your mouth and put it back in your mouth. While it's out of your mouth, I need you to blow bubbles, please. If you don't blow bubbles, I will make you do the skill again. So remember, always blow bubbles. Easy enough. The second rule of scuba: ascend slowly and maintain control. Not one of you in this room are certified to be a Triton missile. You are not being launched out of a submarine tube. Please ascend slowly. Take your time. Not me. Okay. So take your time and ascend slowly. The rule is never dive alone or beyond your level of training. Your level of training, I'm teaching you guys to be able to dive open water with a buddy of equal or more certification than yourself to 60 feet. Okay? Within the non-decompression limits. There's a specific amount of time. And we're going to go through, and very clearly we're going to talk about the non-decompression limits. There is absolutely a box of time that you guys are allowed to do that. So we jump. Here's the fun part. We all became fist bump buddies, man. We're like tight now. I mean, we're just like, we're there, right? We're like blood brother sisters, right? It's cool. So we just all decided to go out to a dive in Palau. We're on this dive boat, and I pop up and say, good night. We're going to be diving the Constantine. The Constantine is at 119 feet, and we're going to be going down and staying down there for about an hour. It's a heavy drift dive with low visibility. Every one of you should be like, no. Yeah, you have fun, you go do that. You are responsible for your dive. Never dive beyond your training. So you're not trained for that, don't do it, right? Say no. One of the biggest things I can tell you about diving is this. Anybody can call a dive at any time for any reason without consequence. I'm going to say that again. Anybody can call a dive at any time for any reason without consequence. And what does that mean? Safety first. So I'm going to use you. You're going to be my guinea pig because you're quiet. You and I are going out on a dive. We're in Palau. We spent $20,000 to go on this dive. You decided not to buy a car because you want to go on this dive. We go down, and we're down for 3 minutes, and you call the dive, we go up. I come to the surface, and I'm like, and I throw a little man hissy fit. I'm sure you've seen hissy fits before, right? You ever seen somebody throw a hissy fit? A tantrum? Have you thrown a tantrum?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so if I throw a tantrum and yell at you and curse, how safe would you be on dive 2? Would you want to tell me anything was wrong on dive 2? No. No. The first rule of this is we want you to be safe. If you call a dive, now with me, now what I may do is when we get to the surface, say, hey, Deborah, what's happened? You okay? What happened? You were scared or just wasn't feeling it? That's absolutely a reason. Just wasn't feeling it. One of the proudest days for me as an instructor is when I have somebody call a dive and just say, hey, I wasn't feeling it. I need to reset. We had one of my friends is a Marine. Got out about 8 months ago. This guy's stacked and packed. He's an EMT, kind of tough guy. You know, he works out all the time, and he's a good guy. I really like Donnie a lot. I was teaching him to ice dive this last season, and he got in the hole, got down to 5 feet, came back up, said, Benjamin, I need out of the hole. I want to go in the tent. I'm not feeling it. Something's not right. Helped him get out of the hole. I gave him a big high five, and I was so proud because even though big tough Marine around him, and we were doing the sheriff's deputies at the same time, said, I need to go in and just reset. He went in the tent, took his dry suit off for a little bit, got warm in front of the heater, came back out and says, I'm ready now. I got my mind in the right place. And he had 2 perfect dives. Don't be afraid. You will not get crap from me ever for calling the dive. So you may say, hey, what's going on? How can we help? What can I do for you? Absolutely. Now, if we are on a dive and you have a problem, but it's not serious enough that we need to ascend because it's not an emergency, what you might do is say, hey, and give me the handshake. That tells me something's wrong. Now, if you would, please try and tell me what that other something wrong is. My ears are hurting. Okay, we can work on that. We'll come up a little bit. My tummy, not good. I'm sick. We can come up. When I give, this means end dive. For me, this is end the dive. Right? Now, whatever it is, just try and point to it, whatever that is. Ears, not good. Tummy, not good. My dad advice is an asshole. I'm just kidding. Whatever it is, I don't care. You won't get anything out of me, but please try and give me an idea what's going on because I would like to try and correct it without coming up if we can. If we can't, if it's an emergency, we're absolutely going up, which means me to the next one. For our signals, this one means what? Descend, right? Dive is over. For me, if you see me do this, this means our dive is ended. We are going up. If you do this, I'm anticipating that that's what's going on. Now, I may stop. Okay, I'll try to get an idea, but this is the end of the dive. If I want you to come up a little bit, I'll do this. If I want to turn around and go back, I'll do the over the shoulder. But if you see me do this, we're going up. End of dive, going up. Okay? So again, you are in control of this dive. There is nobody forcing you to breathe underwater and make bubbles. I want you guys to be very clear on that. I'm not going to force you. Now, I will try and help you through this because I want you to pass this and I want you to be successful. Now, proper breathing patterns. This was me in Honduras goofing off. One of the things you guys will see me do a lot, before we go down, I will stop you all and I'll do this for you. This is my symbol. Nikki, do I do this once in a while? What I'm asking you to do is 3 things. The first one is get your mind right. Relax your brain. Is everything okay? Benjamin's here. He's got me. I'm with a dive buddy. We're only going to 30 feet. Everything's fine. There's no megalodon in Ryrie Reservoir. Whatever it is, get your brain right. The next thing I want you to do is relax your breathing. Get that good breathing going. Most anxiety comes from short breathing and building up carbon dioxide in the system. It's a caveman reflex that when there's a low breathing that you want to get into an anxiety situation, get the heck out of there, right? It's in that part of fight, flight, or freeze, right? When you start getting a mental or a physical issue, your brain kicks into survival mode and tries to figure out fight, flight, or freeze. So I want you to breathe. Next thing after that, I want you to just take your body and just go, just shake it off. Relax your body. The more you can do that, the less gas you'll go through, the more enjoyable your dive will be. So I will stop you. Give you the Zen symbol. Mind, breath, body. Get it out. Once we get down, you'll see me do the exact same thing. We'll be at depth. Stop. Do this. Do the same thing. All right. The fish are alive still, so I must be good. There's no megalodons. Okay, I'm good. I'm still breathing. Relax. Take your time. What I'm trying to teach you guys through this class is to do nothing. That's my goal here. I want to take you down and teach you to do nothing. More dives are ruined by somebody who feels they need to see the whole goddamn ocean in one freaking dive. I want you guys, when you go down, to focus on this square foot of lake, ocean, river, where we're at. And when you feel like you understand that square foot, let's move to the next square foot. And we'll focus on that. The planet is 2/3 water, right? There's plenty of water. It will be there tomorrow. You can see more of it tomorrow. One of the interesting things, my wife and I have been diving Yellowstone Lake for the last 5 years, 6 years, something like that. We've got, I don't know, 300-400 dives in Yellowstone Lake. More dives than anybody you'll ever meet in Yellowstone Lake. It's just retarded, right? But people ask us, well, wait a minute. Have you ever been up to Mammoth? And I'm like, well, one time. But we've literally got 9 months of camping time at Yellowstone Lake. Is it on there? Did the computer go off? Interesting. Could be screen share. There we go. We'll keep playing with that. Let's see. I lost my train of thought where I was at. Where was that? Mammoth. Oh, so we've been diving there quite a bit, and we've got literally 8-9 months of camping time in Yellowstone Lake. People ask us all the time. They're like, "Well, what else have you seen?" And we're like, "I haven't figured out Yellowstone Lake yet. We're still trying to figure that out." So take your time, understand where you're at and what's going on, and get a good feeling of what that's about. And then move on to the next piece. I want you guys to learn to do absolutely nothing and enjoy it. That is your goal. So the biggest thing I see with ladies at the end of open water when we do our fun dives is they do exactly that. Guys automatically turn into Michael Phelps and they want to see the whole dang lake and they speed off like a freaking rocket to see the whole lake. So slow down, take your time. This is not a speed sport in any way, shape, or form. Nick, are you going to fix it or are you going to? So, okay, well, you want to? Okay, so overall, that's our overall goal, is to do nothing. I'm going to. Okay. So as we start learning proper breathing, you'll find that learning proper breathing is going to be a key piece of this. And I can tell you, I'm going to start you guys off with some advanced diving techniques right now. The first one is I hate to tell y'all, but you all are breathing wrong. Didn't think it was possible, did you? But you're all breathing wrong. Absolutely. Now, you guys have obviously seen a baby. You've seen a couple babies. You've seen a couple babies. How does a baby breathe? I saw a baby this morning. He was the cutest little turd. So how does a baby breathe? Yeah, their stomach. They diaphragmic breathe. Now, would it shock you to learn that in diaphragmic breathing, that you gain 60% of the oxygenation for your body from the lower 30% of your lungs? Is that kind of surprising? 60% of the overall body oxygenation comes from the bottom 1/3 of your lungs. So, how should you breathe during diving? In through your belly first, into your chest last. Out from your chest first, out from your belly last. If you do that in rhythmic and even breathing, you will go through less gas. This is your only chance in life to come close to her and sac rate. I'm just going to tell you right now. Other than that, if she figures it out first before you, you're screwed. You guys with her are just screwed to start with. So, but if you want to come closer to where she's only at half a tank before you quit, this is what you'll do. And same thing for you, Josh. If you want to be closer to Deb, this is what you got to do. So, relax. Now, interesting enough, your brain also controls a lot of this, the way you go through gas. I had a dive. I am trained to teach people to go diving by themselves. Okay, so I teach something called solo diving. You guys are nowhere close to being ready for solo diving. But I was on a solo dive and I was well prepared for this. And I came to a point at 108 feet in the lake where it was pitch black. My light went off and something grabbed and yanked my regulator out of my mouth. All at the same time. If you're going to have one problem, you're going to have two, right? So all of a sudden, there I am. No light, can't see crap, and no regulator. So did exactly what I trained. I reached over, grabbed my safety second, cleared it, reached down, found my backup light, because I always carry at least one backup. My guys will tell you that they see at least one backup, sometimes two of everything. Reached down, found it. Turned out I hadn't turned the bezel on my light all the way around, so I was able to turn that on. And I looked over, and I'd gotten into a tree that had grabbed my regulator, and it was in the cusp of a tree. And I was able to clear that out, switch the regulator out. Took me less than 30 seconds probably total between the spare light, putting the extra light away, putting my safety second away, maybe a minute, right? Maybe I'm exaggerating. So a minute with that. Now, as we watched my sac rate, I tend to have a very low sac rate because I dive a lot. And so typically, I'm about 8 liters a minute. At that time, I think I was averaging about 10 liters a minute, which is a low sac rate. If you watch my dive computer, you can tell exactly where the dive challenge was, is because it went from 10 liters a minute to 36 liters a minute. And it took about 15, 20 minutes for it to come back down to 10 liters a minute. What had changed? Was I fighting hard effort? No. Yes, my body tensed up, absolutely, I'm sure. But everything was between my ears. So your brain will actually cause you to have a worse sac rate. So the more you can relax your brain, breathe right, relax your body, the less gas you'll go through. So hand and arm signals. I need an XL. Damn, I broke a nail. I'm just kidding. These are just jokes. This is my way of being funny. Next slide. So, communicate sounds. We're going to ascend. Not okay or not okay. Help over here. Descend. Okay. If you're at the surface and you're in the water, you'll communicate this is okay as well. Next slide. So, stop. You'll see me do this underwater. You watch me. And now hopefully myself and my dive guides and assistant instructors, our signals will be slow and exaggerated as we go through this. I'm okay. I'm okay. Going up, ascend, danger. But there's also cool signals as well. For example, lobster. Crab is a good one. Turtle. Turtle is exactly right. What's another good one? My wife's favorite. Drumfish. Trumpetfish. Absolutely. Eel. This is seahorse. Seriously, that's seahorse. Absolutely. So there's a lot of great signs and symbols under the water. You can communicate quite a bit. My wife and I were on a dive a bunch of years ago, and we'd gotten separated from the group like we always do, and we weren't quite sure where they were at. I had a pretty good idea in my head, but they were gone. And so we went ahead and there was a reef, and the reef came up and around. And so what we did is and there was a big flat plain. So we came up over top of the reef and we lost them, and we cut across where I'm pretty sure they were. But after 20 minutes, we still hadn't come across them. And I was able to communicate enough to my wife to don't tell everybody else that we were lost because, and she understood what I was telling. But we came up about 5 more minutes, so we found them and we were good to go. But you can communicate quite a bit. And that's one of the cool things. The more you dive with your buddy, by the way, buddy, the more you'll pick up little hand and arm signals that work for you guys. We have one. What do you think this means? That's frog. So that's one of ours that we use for frog. You guys will see me when I look at you. I'll do this. I'm asking you to get in diver position. Diver position. This is hover or buoyance. Diver position. You watch me. Diver position. The last thing I want to see you guys do is I see this all the time. I'm ready to see the cool stuff. I see it all the time on YouTube where somebody's kneeling on the bottom, kneeling on the reef. I don't like it. I don't teach it. It's not good for you. It's not good for the environment as well. So please don't be that person. Please try and stay in. We'll start in fin pivot position and we'll work our way out from there. But hand arm signals are pretty important. So go ahead and play on this. We're going to go through and we're going to have some fun skills we're going to get to go through. Maybe. Come on, you can do it. You can do it. All right, just go to the next slide. The heck with her. The heck with her. So tomorrow night, some of the things we're going to go through. Anybody curious what we're going to do tomorrow night? The first thing we're going to do is we're going to go through and we're going to do our snorkeling skills. Oh, we lost it again. Nick! Whatever you did, fix it again. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go through snorkeling skills. We're going to learn how to swim from point A to point B with a snorkel in our mouth. And we're going to use what's called the flutter kick. The flutter kick comes from the hips, nice straight knee, and you're going to let your feet flop naturally. What I see a lot of people try and do is try and do this. This is called a bicycle. We're not going to do the bicycle. We're going to do a nice flutter kick from point A to point B. We're going to learn how to put our mask on with our snorkel. And once we have it on, we're going to learn how to clear it. Simple enough to learn how to clear it. We're going to put 2 fingers on the top of the mask. We're going to look up. We're going to breathe in through our mouth and out through our nose. By putting 2 fingers at the top, it'll allow us to clear our mask nice and easily. What's next? Oh, okay. So that's the first part we're going to do. We're also going to go through and we're going to do skills as well. I'm going to teach you guys to actually put your units on, and we're going to learn how to do what's called a giant stride. You're going to put all your scuba gear on, waist, fins, mask. I'm going to have you guys put your right hand over the front of your mask with your regulator. Put your left hand on your weight pouch. You're going to come to the edge of the pool, and you're going to do what they call a giant stride. It's going to be one big step, and you're going to just come into the water. Once we get in the water, you're going to learn that you have a nice inflator on your left-hand side, and you're going to swim over to one side, but you're going to go ahead and dump the air out of your inflator, and you're going to put air back in your inflator. Simple enough. And then I'm going to give you guys some play time. We're going to go down, and we're going to practice just getting down to the bottom and coming back up. Simple enough. I'm going to give you guys probably 15 to 20 minutes of just play time so that you have the opportunity to just play and have fun. Okay? Once we get through that, we're going to go through and we're going to learn our mask skills. There's going to be 3 of them. Now, mask skills are really simple and they're very important. The reason being is every mask leaks somewhat. No matter what you think, what happens, it's going to leak somewhat, and sometimes you'll lose your mask. So we're going to practice, and good news is I will show these to you again in the pool. I will demonstrate them underwater, and we'll do them at the shallow and at the deep end as well. So mask drill number 1 is going to be halfway. What you're going to do, the mask will be around behind your head, by the way. I'll go ahead and put it on. God, that's so a little person wore this one. You're going to crack the top of your mask, looking up, and you're going to fill the mask halfway with water. All you're going to do is look up, breathe in through your mouth, out through your nose, And you can keep blowing until all the water is out of your mask. While they play and have their fun. Huh, it's the first time it's ever done that. So once you've got master drill number 1, we're going to do master drill number 2. Master drill number 2 is going to be very similar. You're going to look up, you're going to let all the water in. So it's master drill number 2 all the way. Let all the water in your mask until it's completely full. You're going to look up, 2 fingers at the top of your mask, breathe in through your mouth, out through your nose, till all the water's out of your mask. Now, master drill number 3 is very similar. What you're going to do is you're going to look up, breathe in through your mouth, out through your nose. You're going to take your right hand, you're going to crack and let all the water in your mask. Take your left hand, pull the mask strap around behind your hand. You're going to gently pull the mask away. You can take your left hand and you're going to find the nose well, because unfortunately the mask will not always fall off where you know it is at. So I want you guys to get used to taking that left hand, finding the nose well, the nose pocket, until you're able to figure out where that's at. Once that's you found that, you're going to put the mask back on, put the strap back over the back of your head. You're going to look up, 2 fingers on the top of your mask, till all the water's out of your mask. Now, here's the good news on that. If you do it with 1 breath, fantastic. You are a superstar. You passed. If you do it with 3 breaths, congratulations. You are a superstar. You passed. If you do it in 10 breaths, congratulations. You are a superstar. You passed. But we'll probably have a conversation. All you need. Okay. Let me get through the drills real quick, and then we'll go from there. Now, the other skills we're going to learn tomorrow night are going to be the regulator drills. There are 5 of them. I will demonstrate them above the water and below the water in both the shallow and the deep for you as well. Now, regulator drill number 1, you're breathing along. I will say regulator drill number 1, and this will be the purge. What you're going to do is while the regulator's in your mouth, you're going to take a deep breath in first. You're going to take your right hand, grab it at the hose where the hose meets the second stage. You're going to take a breath, take it out of your mouth, making sure to point that down, and while the regulator is out of your mouth, you're going to blow bubbles. Make the motorboat sound. It's kind of fun. Once you've had it out for a second or two, you're going to put it back in your mouth, and you're going to push the button on the back, and it's going to purge. It will clear. The reason you do that is when the regulator's out of your mouth, about a teaspoon of water will fill up into the bellows and the mouthpiece of your regulator. And if you breathe that teaspoon of water into your mouth, into your lungs, they will burn. It will not be fun. You'll feel like you're being waterboarded. It is just not a pleasant experience. Don't do it. But if you purge it, it clears that water out first. So, regulator drill number 1. Oh, there we go. Cool. There we go. So, oh, don't use play. Just use up and down. It's fine. So regulator drill number 1 is the purge. Regulator drill number 2 is very similar. You're going to take the regulator where it meets the first stage. You're going to take it out, take a breath and put it out of your mouth. Blow bubbles. Put it back in your mouth. And you can blow it out. Regulator drill number 1 and 2 are pretty much the same. 1 purges, 1 is a breath. Regulator drill number 3, and on occasion, your regulator will get knocked out of your mouth. You're going to take your regulator, take a deep breath. You're going to take it where it meets the first stage, and you're going to toss it away. Blowing bubbles. You're going to lean to the right, let gravity be your best friend. You take that right arm, nice and straight. Touch your leg, touch your tank, bring it straight around. Take your left hand from your wrist down. You will come up with your second stage again. Once you found your second stage, put it back in your mouth and purge your preferred method. That's regulator drill number 3, the toss. Regulator drill number 4 is the switch. You're going to take that regulator, take a big breath, you're going to toss it away. You're going to find your safety second. Pro tip for you, just grab it right around the centerpiece, yank it, pop it in your mouth, purge it for your preferred method. And then what you're going to do is take that left hand, you're going to find the bottom of your tank, find the right hand, find the first stage, and you'll find that hose. Once you've found that hose, you're going to pull it back around. You're going to take your safety second out of your mouth and put your primary back in, clear your preferred method, you're good to go. And then finally, regulator drill number 5 is the free flow. You're simply going to take your regulator out of your mouth after a deep breath. You're going to turn your head to the side. You're going to put the top half of it in your mouth. You're going to push the purge button, and you're going to take 3 breaths for you while it's on purge. Once you've got those 3 breaths, put it back in your mouth, give me the okay. That's all I'm looking for tomorrow night. Easy enough. So we're going to learn snorkeling. This is the cutest little snorkeler I've ever seen. This is my oldest grandson, Owen. We took him to see the manatees. That was a very, very fun dive. So tomorrow we're going to do snorkeling, buoyancy, wake checks, mask clearing, flutter kick, establish buoyancy, policy buoyancy, equalizing techniques, head first snorkel dive, snorkel fin techniques, surfacing, cramp removal. We're going to go through as well. The good news is one of my fantastic dive guides is going to teach all this. Establishing buoyancy, and we're going to do some weight checks. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. And that's into part one, and we're going to take a 5-minute break. Next slide. And pause. You want to pause the video?